In the previous episode, we challenged the simplistic idea that artificial intelligence is about to erase every human worker overnight. But if AI is not going to replace everything instantly, then why do so many corporate AI strategies still collapse under their own weight? The answer is uncomfortable. Many organizations do not fail because the technology is useless. They fail because the boardroom approaches automation backwards. Leaders buy tools before understanding workflows. They chase demos before defining outcomes. They announce transformation before preparing the people, systems, data, governance, and operating model that transformation actually requires. In this episode, we are not going to rely on vague warnings. We are going to look at the pattern through concrete cases. Real companies, real pilots, real legal consequences, and real operational friction. The central mistake is treating AI as a technology purchase instead of an organizational redesign. A model can summarize documents, classify tickets, generate code, or recommend decisions. But a company is not a clean laboratory. It is a living system of incentives, approvals, exceptions, politics, customer promises, compliance obligations, and legacy infrastructure. When leaders ignore that reality, they ask AI to solve the easiest part of the problem while leaving the hardest part untouched. The backwards playbook is almost always the same. First, executives see a breathtaking demo. Then they search for a department to automate. Then they set an aggressive savings target. Then they ask employees to adapt to a system that was never designed around the real work. This is how organizations turn a promising technology into an expensive disappointment. They confuse visible capability with operational readiness. The first boardroom blunder is starting with the tool instead of the problem. A chief executive hears that competitors are adopting generative AI, so the company rushes to deploy a chatbot, a copilot, or an automation platform. But nobody has clearly defined the operational bottleneck. Nobody has mapped the failure points. Nobody has decided which decisions should remain human, which tasks should be automated, and which outcomes actually matter. Without that clarity, AI becomes a solution looking for a problem. A demo is designed to remove friction. Real work is defined by friction. In a demonstration, the input is clean, the user knows exactly what to ask, and the system is judged by a narrow output. Inside a real enterprise, the request arrives incomplete. The data is scattered. The customer is angry. The regulation is ambiguous. The exception matters more than the average case. This is where many AI strategies begin to break. A useful public example is McDonald's AI drive-through ordering test with IBM. The point is not that voice AI has no future. McDonald's itself said voice ordering could still be part of its restaurants later. The lesson is that a drive-through is not a quiet lab. There is engine noise, accents, impatient customers, menu substitutions, children shouting from the back seat, payment problems, and workers trying to keep the line moving. The operational environment is the product. The second blunder is automating a broken process. If a workflow is slow because approvals are unclear, data ownership is fragmented, or departments are protecting their own silos, AI will not magically fix it. It may simply accelerate the confusion. Automation applied to a bad process does not create intelligence. It creates faster bad process. Before organizations automate, they have to simplify, redesign, and clarify the work itself. The third blunder is pretending the data is ready. Boardrooms often imagine data as a clean lake waiting for AI to drink from it. The reality is usually closer to a flooded basement. Duplicate customer records, missing fields, incompatible formats, regional databases that do not agree with each other, old spreadsheets that still contain business-critical knowledge. Zillow Offers is a useful cautionary example here. Zillow was not a tiny company guessing in the dark. It had an enormous real estate audience, a famous home value model, and years of market data. Yet when it tried to scale instant home buying, the company said home price forecasting became too volatile, operations became too risky, and the business had to be wound down. The issue was not simply prediction. It was prediction plus inventory, renovation labor, supply chains, holding costs, market swings, and balance sheet exposure. When leaders skip data cleanup and operational reality, the AI system inherits the mess and presents it with confidence. The fourth blunder is treating governance as a legal formality instead of an operating system. Every serious AI deployment needs rules for access, review, escalation, privacy, auditability, and final accountability. Without those rules, nobody knows when to trust the system, when to override it, or who is responsible when something goes wrong. The Air Canada chatbot case made this painfully concrete. A customer relied on chatbot guidance about bereavement fares. The guidance conflicted with the airline's actual policy, and the tribunal still held the company responsible for information delivered through its own website. That is the governance lesson in miniature. The interface may feel automated, but the legal and reputational responsibility remains human and corporate. Governance is not bureaucracy around AI. It is the steering wheel. The fifth blunder is forgetting the people who actually do the work. Employees are not obstacles to automation. They are the holders of hidden process knowledge. They know which customer exceptions matter. They know which system fields are unreliable. They know which policy is written one way but used another way in practice. The Amazon recruiting tool story is one of the clearest warnings. The goal sounded sensible: help recruiters sort large numbers of resumes faster. But the system reportedly learned from years of historical hiring data, and those patterns reflected the existing gender imbalance in technical roles. The danger was not a cartoonishly evil machine. The danger was a machine learning old human bias, compressing it into a score, and making it look objective. When organizations impose AI on people, resistance grows. When they build AI with people, audit it with people, and let affected workers challenge it, adoption becomes possible. The sixth blunder is treating integration as an afterthought. Most enterprises are not built from one clean technology stack. They are layered from decades of acquisitions, regional systems, old vendor platforms, temporary spreadsheets, and custom workarounds. A model that performs brilliantly in isolation can still fail when it must connect to the actual nervous system of the company. IBM Watson Health is a useful, high-profile warning. The public promise around AI in medicine was enormous, but healthcare is not just pattern recognition. It is clinician trust, hospital workflow, patient records, imaging systems, reimbursement rules, clinical responsibility, and regulatory caution. IBM ultimately sold healthcare data and analytics assets that had been part of Watson Health, and the assets became part of Merative under Francisco Partners. Again, the lesson is not that AI has no role in healthcare. The lesson is that domain complexity defeats shallow deployment. Integration is where the fantasy meets the plumbing. The seventh blunder is measuring the wrong thing. Many AI pilots are judged by spectacle. Impressive outputs, exciting demos, or a dramatic forecast of future savings. But durable value comes from boring measurements. Cycle time reduced, error rates lowered, customer issues resolved, risk exposure controlled, employee capacity increased. This is where the case studies start to rhyme. A drive-through voice system is not valuable because it sounds futuristic. It is valuable only if it improves order accuracy, speed, crew workload, and customer experience under real conditions. A pricing model is not valuable because it predicts on a dashboard. It is valuable only if the whole operation can survive the uncertainty around that prediction. If leaders cannot connect AI to measurable operational improvement, the pilot becomes theater. Successful AI strategy begins in the opposite direction. Start with the work. Identify a real bottleneck. Map the decision. Define the risk. Clean the data. Decide where a human must remain accountable. Then choose the model, tool, or automation that fits the operating reality. If the bottleneck is customer support, start with the 10 most common exception types. If the bottleneck is finance, start with invoice reconciliation and approval rules. If the bottleneck is clinical operations, start with workflow safety, not with a grand claim that the model will replace professional judgment. In this version, AI is not a magical replacement engine. It becomes a carefully placed capability inside a redesigned human system. A good pilot is not a publicity event. It is a controlled experiment. It has a narrow workflow, a baseline, a success metric, a risk boundary, and a human review mechanism. It does not try to transform the whole company in one announcement. It proves value in one place, learns honestly from failure, and only then earns the right to scale. At scale, AI is not a project. It is an operating capability. Companies need ownership, monitoring, retraining, vendor management, security reviews, model updates, and escalation paths. They need people who understand both the technology and the business. They need a way to notice when the model drifts, when user behavior changes, when a vendor update alters performance, when a policy changes, or when employees quietly stop trusting the tool. The boardroom tends to imagine deployment as the finish line. In mature organizations, deployment is the starting line. That is the real work of digital transformation. Not installing intelligence, but learning how to operate with it. This is why so many AI strategies fail. Not because artificial intelligence has no value, but because leaders try to use it as a shortcut around the messy human work of transformation. The organizations that win will not be the ones that automate first and think later. They will be the ones that understand the work, respect the people, redesign the system, and use machines to amplify human capability. In the next episode, we will go deeper into the operating model of successful AI adoption. How companies build human-machine teams that actually last.